It's a 4th of July, 6 o'clock on a 4th of July morning, Friday the 4th. Because we're part-time, we kind of volunteered to come in and do a couple runs this morning. First of which was this 45-foot transfer coming from the big box here in Kailua. We're taking it to their off-site warehouse in Halava. We'll drop this off and then we'll pick up the full weight empty that's there and take that into the shipping terminal Sand Island, which is open. Seems like most retail establishments are open today, 4th of July. Big federal holiday, everybody's off, but they like to go shopping out today. Take advantage of the sales. In fact, my wife has told me as soon as I get home, we got to go to Walmart and take advantage of a sale on a new blender. I guess that's how it works. So we're over here in Kailua, making our way up the Pali here. Just ahead is Kalanianiole Highway. The end of it at that light. And I lost the gear. There it is. Truck slowed down a lot faster than I thought it would. Just gotta make our way over the speed bumps here. The sun is just barely rising. I don't think it's up yet. I think it's another 20 minutes or so. See the mist on the mountains in front of us. We're going to make our way up and over the Kopalau mountain range. Make our way back to the leeward side of the island. So this is the end of Kalanianiole Highway. Beginning of the Pali Highway. If we stayed on this road, we'd end up at the Aloha Tower in downtown Honolulu, but we're just going to take this a mile or two and then get on the Kamehameha Highway, which will take us over to the H3. That's going to take us up and over that mountain to Halava. So yeah, nice little 20-mile run today, over the hill and back, 20 miles each way. Good run to get the day started. So probably the most asked question on my channel is there trucking work in Hawaii? I mean, do we have a lot of trucking work? And I think trucking work in the United States is, you know, the answer is the same. It's everywhere. It's one of those jobs that there's just not enough drivers. Every company has to deal with that. You know, we can find inexperienced drivers galore. Usually inexperienced drivers, you know, don't make it to experienced drivers just because of the nature of the work. It's not an easy job. It's a simple job, but it's not an easy job. Anybody can learn this job. It's not too many people are willing to stick with it though until the muscle memory gets to the point where you don't have to think about it too much. Because it's a job that requires constant attention. You know, there's no cruise control So that's the first job. Yes, there's tons of work here in Hawaii for people that want to drive trucks. The second job is, can you get ahead in Hawaii, or can I make it in Hawaii, or how hard is it? It's not easy. Hawaii is very difficult to get ahead, especially. You can make it in Hawaii pretty easily, but to get ahead in Hawaii, that's going to take a bit more effort than I think it would in the mainland. There's a little bit of a paradise tax. So yes, you can. Hardest part is housing. The hardest part of living in Hawaii is housing. That drives away most people. The best part of living in Hawaii is the weather. That brings most people here, including myself. And then usually the third question I get is like, how did I do it? And I don't like to tell people how to do things, but this is how I did it. I was born in Washington State. When I was 5, my mom married my stepdad. So I come from kind of a broken family. My mom and my stepdad, they moved the family to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So I was born in Washington State, but when I was 5, I moved to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So you're in first grade at 5. So second grade, I start in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I lived there in the U.S. Virgin Islands until I'm 21. And I finally leave the Virgin Islands right around 21, 22. So that's where I grew up. That's my my cultural background would be West Indian. That's because I was there from 5 to 21. That very influential time of your life. School years. Moved to New York City where my mom, my mom, my brother, and my half-sister were living at the time. They're all younger than me, so they were still in school. So they actually went to school in New York. I did not. And I think my brother graduated from Bayshore High School. Sister graduated from a high school in Brooklyn, New York. So I lived in New York 7 years. I really enjoyed the education. It was everything that Caribbean wasn't. It was definitely a good streetwise education. Hated the winter. So every winter I would try to travel and go someplace where it was warm. I'd go back to the Virgin Islands, did that a few times. And I had a friend that lived here in Hawaii, and I started coming out to Hawaii. So I came out to Hawaii in the winter of 83, came back in the winter of 85. And finally decided to move to Hawaii in September of 87. So at that time I was 27 years old. I think I had like $700 in my pocket and a girlfriend. We moved to Hawaii. That's how it started. My first job in Hawaii, I was working at my friend's 1 hour photo at the Sears 1 hour photo at the Ala Moana Shopping Center. That was my very first job. It was just a job. When it comes to work, I'll do anything for it. Basically for work. And then once I've established myself, I'll work my way up to where I want to be. So I've always had that mentality. I don't care where I go, I can find work because I'm willing to work. And as long as you're willing to pick up a broom and a dustpan, usually people will hire you. And so I got a job working the 1 hour photo as a cashier. Did that for about a year. And while I was there, a lady came in with some pictures of tour buses and accidents. She was the safety officer for a tour bus company. She also did the hiring and firing for the tour bus company. And having done a little bit of driving in New York when I lived there, I asked her, what it took to become a tour bus driver in Hawaii. It seemed like a fun job. And she asked me what my experience was, and I said, I've driven trucks and did a little bit of tractor trailer work, even though I wasn't legal at the time. I could drive a tractor trailer. As long as it's not real difficult. And her eyes lit up and she goes, well, if that's your experience, if you come down next week, Monday, this was on a Friday, if you come down on Monday, we'll get you into a Highly recommend. Didn't pay well, but man, was it fun. And it taught me a lot about the Hawaiian Islands because you're driving around all day long with 50 people behind you asking you questions about the island. Look how beautiful it is. Yeah. So you get questions like, first of all, what time is it? It's 6:13. That's the most asked question as a tour bus driver. What time is it? Second most asked question is how long till we get there? We're headed to Halava. We'll be there in about 10 minutes. And then you get questions like, what's the name of these mountain ranges? You know, the Kolau mountain range. They separate the island from windward to leeward. How high are they? A little over 2,000 feet high. Not quite 3. We're going to head through a tunnel now, head to the leeward side of the island. So we're going from the lush green windward side that gets lots and lots of rain. These mountains receive just under a half an inch of rain every day. And so it's very green on this side of the island. And then we're going to go to the leeward side of the island where it doesn't get as much rain. It gets pretty brown during the summer months, which I've already noticed. So we make our way through the H3 tunnel. And so I'm driving tour buses, doing all the tours. And the first Gulf War comes along. And the tour industry takes a huge dive in Hawaii. Nobody wanted to jump on a plane for fear of, hijackers. So I go from working 6 days a week down to working 2 days a week. And at that point, I had just gotten married and had all this debt, and now I'm working 2 days a week. Oh, and we also just bought a little studio apartment. So I bought a studio apartment, got married, and the first Gulf War came along. And now here I have all this debt, and I'm making like, $100 a week. So I was in a little bit of financial trouble, which led to marriage problems, which led to a divorce and a bankruptcy. That was my first 5 years, 6 years in Hawaii, 7 years maybe. So at this point, driving tour buses 2 days a week, looking for something, and I look across the street, and there's a garbage company called BFI, Brownie and Ferris Industries, and there's another tour bus driver who had just went over there, and he said, oh yeah, they're looking for roll-off drivers. I said, roll-off drivers? He says, yeah, but you got to be able to drive a 10-speed. And I've driven a 10-speed, but it had been like 10 years since I'd done it, and I was never that good at it. But anyway, I walk across the street, sure enough, get hired on as a roll-off driver. They took about a month of training and set me free, and I drove roll-offs for 2 years, 2.5 years, servicing all the convenience centers on the island. These were centers that are set up to collect trash, and then from there they take it to the landfill, H-Power. After 2 years of driving roll-offs, working 60 hours a week, financially I was in pretty good shape, and was getting over my divorce, and that's when I met my current wife, Michelle, and we've been married now for 27 years. So she was a salesperson at the garbage company at the time. And so I then moved from roll-off to front load. So now I'm driving front load for about 5 years. And the front load is a little more work, a little more hours, and a lot more strenuous. And my body's getting beat up, and after like 5 years I had had enough. And I was looking for something a little bit easier. And a friend of mine who I drove tour buses with was the safety officer for this company, DHX. And he told me he had just come back from the mainland where he was driving for Swift, and he was a trainer for Swift. So he was all excited to come back to Hawaii and teach guys how to drive tractor trailer. And his full-time job was the safety guy at DHX. So he convinced me to come and work doing freight. And I came over at the worst possible time because the unions, the stevedores in the mainland were on strike, and as a result there was no freight coming to Hawaii. So when I started with DHX, the warehouse was completely empty. Nobody was working. Everybody was just, one day a week maybe come in and clean up the warehouse. The strike went on for like 2 weeks, I think. And during that time, they needed somebody to do air freight. So I was hired to drive a van to do air freight, which was very busy at that time because there was no freight coming in. And so I did air freight for about 3 months, and then when the strike was over, the warehouse went from being completely empty to like 120% full. I mean, you couldn't even squeeze in the door to get to the time clock to punch in. There was so much freight. And so I got super busy, and I quickly went from air freight to a small flatbed truck, doing air freight and other freight. Then I went to a small box truck, and then I went to a bigger box truck, and I hated that. So then I went back to a big flatbed, which I really enjoyed. And I stayed with the flatbed for about 2 years. During this time, remember, I was hired because he was going to teach me how to be a tractor trailer driver. It never happened. By that time, he was ready to leave the company and move to the Big Island, and so I took it upon myself to teach myself how to drive tractor trailer. And so I jumped in the truck after work every day and just clean up the yard and get familiar. Went down and signed up to take the test. Forced DHX to send me down with the driver and a trailer to take the test, which they weren't real excited about when they did. Took the test, passed the road test, passed the fundamentals and whatever that other skills test is, and then I failed the pre-trip. And so went back a week later, retake the pre-trip, failed it again. So now I'm mad because I thought I knew everything. And so now I really studied. The third time was the charm. Yeah, just as I thought, you'd come in to do 2 runs and then they call you up and add 3 more to it. It's all empties that need to be picked up. So now I'm finally a tractor trailer driver. Been a tractor trailer driver now since 22 years. Just turned 65, so now I'm ready to retire. I got my financials squared away. House is paid off. I have a rental house that's paid off. I've never made much more than $50,000-$60,000 a year here in Hawaii, but my wife is very frugal. She forced me to save most of what I make. So I was always saving between 30 and 50% of my income. Learning how to live on 30, 40,000 a year as opposed to 50, 60 that I was making. And so financially pretty good. We've got the houses paid off, got some money in the bank. I can retire at 65 and I don't have to wait till I'm 67. But I'm still in pretty good shape. I still enjoy the work, so I don't mind coming in a couple days a week maybe and just having some fun on the truck. So we're in a pretty good place at the moment. I think I'll be doing some more traveling. I picked up YouTube a little over 10 years ago just to share what I was doing every day with my mom and dad. They both passed on, so now I just do it for primarily younger drivers that are just starting out. They find them pretty educational and entertaining as far as what it's like to be a truck driver in Hawaii. I don't try to sugarcoat it. I don't try to make it look better than it is. It's work, and hopefully it looks like that. But yeah, I enjoy the YouTube. It's kind of a good hobby. I wish I was better at it. I might one day get more excited about it and try to make better content. But for now, this is what it is. Just trying to be consistent. But that's basically my story. We're up here in the Halava Valley. We're going to make our way to this off-site warehouse. We're on the 4 ways. Looks like they might have a truck. No. No, we can back in there. Just gotta wait for the car behind us to get back. Oh, they're going the same place we are. Slopes, it feels weird. So yeah, we're going to drop this out of the dock and then pick up the other container, which might be empty, might be full, we're not sure. So we got the landing gear up high enough to get over the hump here. So yeah, we'll get this dropped and then we'll hook up to the other one. That's it, we're shutting it down. It's 9:45 on a Friday, 4th of July. We came in at 5, we'll be out of here by 10. We moved 5 container loads. Half were empties and 3 of them were fulls. So yeah, coming to Hawaii, that if I had to think back, I was 27, had $700, my girlfriend. And as far as my living, status or locations while I've been here, when I moved here, I moved in with a friend from high school and his girlfriend. They had a 1-bedroom and we slept on the couch in the living room, sort of. And we did that for maybe 3 months. At which point we then went out and we rented a 2-bedroom. This was back, 87, so maybe 88. We rented a 2-bedroom. I think it was $400. And there were 4 of us living in it. We were all working. So and it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So, and it was the penthouse in an apartment building in Makiki. So that was pretty easy financially for everyone. But none of us really liked the living room arrangements, with 2 couples living together. So that lasted probably a little over a year. And at that point, my girlfriend and I were breaking up, and my best friend and his girlfriend were getting ready to get married. So they went and rented their own place, and I went and rented a one-bedroom, and I think that one bedroom was $300 a month back then. So this is $300 a month, and at that time I was bringing home maybe $125 a week. So it would take over 2 paychecks to pay for my rent. And but I was working as a tour bus driver, so I was making, you know, $50 to $70 a day in tips. And so I felt I was doing all right. And I stayed there until they raised the rent. They raised the rent from $300 to $350, and I moved out, and I moved to another apartment which I thought was better for the exact same rent, $350, but it was a little bit nicer, and it came with covered parking as opposed to uncovered parking, and the square footage was a little bit better. It's a newer building, and I lived there again for a little over a year, and then they raised the rent from $350 to $400 for a one bedroom. At that point I moved out, and I moved to a place not even a block away for $375, no parking. And that's where I met my wife when I was living there. And shortly, about a year after that, we moved in together in her place. She lost her roommate, and I moved in. And so we lived there for a year, and we got married. Right after we got married, we bought the townhouse where we now live. So those are all the living places. There was I missed one, because when I was married to my first wife, we bought a studio, and then the divorce came, right, and then that went into bankruptcy. So it was from the 2-bedroom to the 1-bedroom to the other 1-bedroom, at which point we moved into bought the studio, went through bankruptcy, moved back to the 1-bedroom, met my wife today, and then moved in to her 2-bedroom, and from there we bought a house, or bought an apartment, townhouse. And shortly thereafter, like 6 months after that, we bought a single-family home. So I own 2 homes in Hawaii. One was basically bought with my money, and one was basically bought with my wife's money, but you know, it's all the same now. But we were both in that, I'm tired of renting, I'm going to buy and build equity type of mindset. So yeah, in the years that I've lived in Hawaii, that's all the different places I've lived. But I've lived the longest where I am right now, and it shows, because every closet and every drawer in the house is just packed with, you know, stuff that you accumulate. There needs to be a purge. But that is it for today. Thanks for watching. Aloha.